Welcome back to Broadminded. We're the Broads, Christine and Molly on Sirius XM Stars, channel 107. Very important. Go to our website, broadmindedonline.com, and like us on Facebook. We'll also have all this information up on our blog in a little bit. But we continue our awareness series as we raise awareness on sexual violence and domestic violence because of the Duffy House. So once a month, we have guests come on. And today is very important. We're going to talk about rape survivors that are targeting Hanes Macy's Target about this cover-up at these factories in Jordan of sexual abuse. And joining us is Charlie Kernaghan, who is the director of the Institute for Global Labor and Human Rights. He's on the phone. And then Amanda Kloer is in studio with us, and she's the senior organizer of change.org. So both of you, welcome to Broadminded. How are you?
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Good.
Hello, Charlie. So let's just start with you, Charlie, and tell us what the Institute of Global Labor and Human Rights does.
Well, we're a human rights group, and we basically focus on worker rights of some of the poorest people from the developing world. So we, are involved in the global economy and in researching, and this whole case around Jordan came up when we were in Jordan in December of 2010 meeting with these workers. We have a free trade agreement with the country of Jordan. The United States has a free trade agreement with Jordan. It allows those goods that are made in Jordan to come into the U.S. duty-free. Mm-hmm. But when we went to Jordan over the years, and then when we were there last December, we find out that all of the workers in these garment factories in Jordan, they're not Jordanians, they're young women from some of the poorest countries in the world. They're from Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, India, Nepal, China. They're taken into these factories. In the beginning, they were stripped of their passports. That's a crime, a human rights crime. Mm-hmm. They were forced to work 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. They were paid 61 cents an hour. They were beaten. They were hit with the garments. And they were also sexually abused and raped, groped, tortured. And then when we were in Jordan in December, these young women came to us and gave us these DVD tapes. And, we took them back to the United States. We looked at them. We couldn't really understand it because it was in Sinhalese. We had it translated, and these women had given us tapes, and they gave us their testimonies. Mm-hmm. They covered their faces to protect themselves so they wouldn't be killed or imprisoned, covered their faces, and they testified about how they were being raped by the managers in this factory called Classic, which is the largest factory in Jordan, the largest garment export factory in Jordan. It does produce for Walmart and Target and Hanes and Macy's and Kohl's. These women told these unbelievable stories of being repeatedly raped by the managers. And one woman said, this person just kept raping me over the course of months. And she said, now he's deporting me. They're firing me. They're going to send me back to Sri Lanka. She was a young Sri Lankan woman. And she actually said, I would commit suicide. I am so hurt, except I'm the only breadwinner for my poor parents, so right. I have to live. And then she said, we live in a one-room home in Sri Lanka. We're very poor. She said, I will not be able to take my clothing off in front of my mother because I have bite marks all over my body. He talked to her like that. Story after story like this.
The stories are horrible, and it's so sexist because what they do is you have these, we sign these trade agreements, and we are trying, there's political reasons why we're in Jordan in the first place, and you would think that the Jordanians, their unemployment is so low, yet they recruit these women from these other countries because they know that these women are weak and that they're not going to fight back. It's so set up. And what I don't understand is, are any of these factories unionized? Are they?
No. There is a phony Jordanian union for Jordanians. But there is no independent media in Jordan. There's no independent unions in Jordan. It's not a democracy. There are no independent human rights organizations. These women are completely trapped. It's like being in prison. They can't speak Arabic.
They have no rights, right? And they don't speak the language.
They don't speak. Yeah. And so this is so barbaric. You wonder how something like this can go on for as long as it's gone on. The conditions. Let's just put aside the sexual assaults and everything. It's just the conditions themselves themselves is a crime. How does this happen, and why haven't we just tried to do something before now? And then we'll get into what Change.org is trying to do. But Amanda, can you answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that these conditions are in place because of a ton of very, very complex global factors. And one of the serious issues that I work on at Change.org is human trafficking and debt bondage.
Yes.
And a lot of these women find themselves in situations of debt bondage because of the fee they pay for basically permission to come to Jordan from Sri Lanka or Bangladesh and to work. And they arrive in debt. And until they're able to pay off that debt, they owe huge amounts of money. So oftentimes they're faced with a situation of either staying in these horribly abusive and brutal working conditions, suffering sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and rape, or returning to Sri Lanka still in debt and now with no possible way to make a wage that's going to pay off their debt.
Or help their families.
Yeah. So it ends up being a really, really tough situation for these women.
Well, think about these recruiters that are going over to these countries and saying, look, you don't have any money, I'll tell you what, we'll bring you over and you can pay us back. So for the first 3 years they're working in the factories, they're just paying back. Just being there. They're not even, are they even sending money back home?
It varies a lot from situation to situation. In some cases, women are able to collect some wages and send some money home while paying off their debt. In some situations, we see a debt that is sort of ever growing and that is never going to get paid off, that's going to keep that person in debt bondage for 5, 10, 20 years.
And that's exactly where they want them to be. I mean, the trafficking is a whole nother conversation that we should have you back. But that's exactly, they get in these situations that these women feel like they can't get out of. So well, first of all, people need to be held accountable, and that's what is happening now, finally. So do you think, Charlie, with this case, and what can people do also, Amanda, but is this going to work, or is it going to continue? Good. Sorry, I asked both of you at the same time. Charlie, go ahead.
Well, of course, I think the Change.org petition that's circulating is absolutely critical to save these women's lives. It's really a lifeline for them, and it is one of the most disturbing parts of this is that we have a free trade agreement, the United States with Jordan, and we've done nothing.
That's what I don't understand. I can't. Why is that?
Well,
I can't wrap my head around it.
Let me.
Well, actually, I think Obama is actually trying to say, look, we have to stick to these laws, because before there was no regulations with the free trade agreements. He's actually starting to try to make this happen.
But if you have proof, how does it just not? I don't understand why it just doesn't stop.
Oh, because it's so prevalent.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned before about these managers going out and recruiting these young women. The worst serial rapist at the factory, Anil Santa, went recently to Bangladesh to recruit 1,000 young women to bring them back to the factory. I mean, it is out of control. And we supposedly, the U.S.-Jordan Free Trade Agreement was negotiated under President Clinton, but implemented in 2001 under President Bush. And in 5 years, in broad daylight, the U.S. Free Trade Agreement turned into human trafficking, workers stripped of their passports, beaten, tortured, starved, raped.
Right.
This went on for 5 years until the only way we found out about this, we didn't know that much about Jordan or the U.S. Jordan Free Trade Agreement. A Bangladeshi worker sent us a fax, handwritten in English, very poor English, and actually said, please come and help us. They're beating us. They're killing us. They're raping our women. That was the first we heard of it. We jumped on a plane. We went to Jordan. And
not to interrupt you, when is this, Charlie? When did you guys get the fax?
This thing came back in like 2005. So, in fact, until we got involved in 2006, we put out a major report, testified in Congress, front-page articles in newspapers and everything. We blew the administration out of the water. And they all, even the Jordanians and the U.S. government, had to admit that we had miserably failed, that the free trade agreement had been, it really was falling into slavery, and no one was watching. And sad to say, still today, to this minute, there's almost no effective enforcement in these factories whatsoever. They're run like prisons.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and Charlie, I think makes such a good point at how incredibly pervasive the corruption is in Jordan, and how incredibly complex these issues are. And a lot of times this can seem like a very difficult obstacle to overcome.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons that Charlie and his organization came to change.org to start their petition, is because when we look at possible solutions to this problem, we see that the power really lies in the hands of these Western brands, Hanes, Macy's, Target, Walmart, that are buying from this factory, because they have the ability to say, look, we're going to pull our orders and we're going to take our business somewhere else unless you guys fix the horrific human rights situation on the ground. And to date, over 90,000 people have signed the change.org petition, asking those brands to speak out. And we're working with them, and they're starting to launch investigations of their own. So we're really, for the first time, seeing some progress made on this side of things, because...
Why did it take so long?
No,
He's
this
telling
is-
from
yeah.
2006.
Well,
but
this campaign actually started with Change.org and very recently. So, like, in other
Right.
words, this is a remarkable burst of
No,
energy
it's wonderful.
on the part of the American people. So this is, for us, it's a godsend. For the workers, it's a godsend. In other words, we can do the research. We know these workers. We meet with them. They trust us. But to move these big labels, they won't do a thing unless the American people stand up and demand it. One of these companies went in, sent auditors in, one of the major companies. And the person they used to take them around the factory, they went into the factory and they walked around the shop floor. You know who they used as their translator? One of the managers from the factory. I mean, it is just laughable.
Right, and it's also amazing
God.
who is hiring these managers. And I want to say that this has been going on for a while. It's just when you start paying attention and you start realizing what groups like Change.org and your group does, you start for the first time going, no, this has been going on. You're just finally discovering it for the first time. And I want to say this isn't just the women. Migrant workers, they have no rights over there. And men are being recruited. They're being told, you're going to come over here and do construction work, and then they end up in a completely different environment. So it's not just the women that human trafficking isn't just the sex trade. It's just people being abused all over the place.
Absolutely. And I think that the difference in the moment in history that we're sitting at is that we, for the first time, have the tools, the technology to mobilize large populations of people to put pressure on companies, on governments, on individuals, on organizations to start taking these steps. And that's what Change.org is really in the business of. We're the fastest growing social action platform in the world. We're getting over 400,000 new members a month, which to me really speaks to the hunger that people have to engage in these issues and to do something about these issues, and to make the world more just through the fantastic availability of technological tools that we have today.
So as we're talking to you guys right now, we want people to go to change.org, and where can they sign this petition?
It's right on the front page. If you go to change.org, you'll see it there. It's the petition asking Walmart, Macy's, Target, Hanes, and other brands to intervene in the ongoing human rights crisis in Jordan, protect the women of Classic Factory from sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and rape, and ensure that factory conditions moving forward are safe for all the workers there.
You know, what's interesting is you get these PR statements from the companies when you read about Macy's and Hanes, and they're saying they're not. What is the accountability? Send those people over there and see what's going on. I mean, if they're not going to pull their business, there seems to be this systemic problem of who's hiring who and how the actual managers that are managing the factories are actually doing the rapes.
You know, just how this operates, just to break in for 1 second, is we begged the Jordanian government to allow independent, credible women's rights organizations from Sri Lanka and Bangladesh to go into Jordan, and we would set up a safe house meeting, a secret meeting where no spies could come in, and the workers would speak to the trusted women's rights leaders from their countries, from Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and the Jordanian government wouldn't let us do it because they're part of this cover-up. So
it's so much corruption.
Yeah,
You're fighting
exactly.
mafia. It's all mafia, and it's disgusting.
So what do Kohl's, Walmart, what do these people have to say? And when the Huffington Post that you sent me article came out, what are they saying? How are they explaining themselves, Amanda?
So a lot of the brands that I've spoken to and communicated with with via Facebook or via email, have said that they're waiting for the outcome of an investigation that's being launched right now by the Jordanian Bureau of Labor and Employment and the Sri Lankan Bureau of Foreign Employment. However, and Charles can go into more detail on this, there is significant concern about corruption within those entities. For example, this is the difference between having a rape victim interviewed by a women's rights activist in her own language in a safe place and having her interviewed by a male government agent with the power to deport her if she complains.
Exactly.
What rape victim is going to feel comfortable disclosing to somebody who she knows has the power to deport her if she complains? She might have a debt. She might have a family to feed back home. She might have, children or a husband or folks that she's worried about their health and safety if she complains. So really looking at the way these investigations are conducted are incredibly important. And that's one of the reasons that it's so important to have independent human rights organizations coming in that aren't affiliated with the Jordanian government and doing these investigations. And that's one of the things that we're trying to communicate to the companies who I really think, don't want to believe that these sorts of things are being, done in order to make their clothing. I think that they want to do the right thing, that they just need a little bit more education on what the situation on the ground is in Jordan.
And I think for your groups, you guys have to fight the corruption, but you can't stop. Because if you just give up and you say, it's so corrupt, there's nothing I can do, they're actually going to go after the women just for standing up for themselves. It just seems like there's one roadblock after the other. But you can you're showing us you actually can make a difference. You can actually penetrate the system by getting in there.
Absolutely. I encourage everyone to go to change.org, sign the petition, make sure that your voice is heard, make sure that these brands understand that you as a consumer value respect for workers in the products that you buy and that that's a priority for you. And I think that when we're able to communicate that effectively to companies, we're going to see a situation in which workers' rights and labor rights across the world are lifted up.
Should we, as another thing that we can do, and this is hard to do, just stop shopping at these places? Just simply don't go. I mean, is that almost too big to ask, as well as sign the petition?
I always promote reform above boycott, because if the classic factories,
because I know people are thinking this right now.
I'm not going to shop at Macy's. I always support reform first, because if the classic factories shut down tomorrow, a lot of people would lose their jobs. And that's not really going to benefit anybody. What we really want is for there to be a factory where people are making fair wages, where they have safe and decent working conditions.
Exactly.
And we want the brands that are shopping at those factories to enforce those. So I think that this is the time to say, look, I am going to take my business elsewhere if you don't do these things, but I'm first going to ask you to do these things.
And I'm going to sign this petition.
We also welcome people to go to Facebook and write on the Facebook walls of Target, Hanes, Macy's, Walmart, Kohl's, the companies that use this factory, and say, please, as someone who buys your products, I'm asking you to put human rights first and to take solid and decisive decision and make sure that you're protecting the rights of the workers of Jordan.
And I think that's really important what you said, because if you read these blogs and you read people's comments, that's what the first response is, I'm not going, I'm standing, but there's other things that you can do that will be more productive than like your first visceral response, which is to just not go. Sign the petition, and because these women need work, it just needs to be done, like you said, in a safe environment.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think that Target, Hanes, Macy's, Walmart, all of them want their clothing made by women who are treated respectfully, who are safe.
But here's the thing about that, though. They can't make... It's cheaper for them to make their clothes over there, and they make profits over here. So the question is, are they turning the other way because they want to make profits? I mean, there has to be some accountability on their part too, not just thinking, oh, they don't want women to be raped, but they want to make money too. And that greed is causing some serious problems. It's all part of it. Charlie, I want to ask you, who are the workers? What nationalities are they? Jordanian? Where are they from? The factory workers.
These people in this factory and other factories, garment factories all across Jordan, they're all guest workers. 85% of the workers are young women. Maybe
the managers.
The managers from all over the world. There'll be very few Jordanian managers, but they're Indian managers, they're Sri Lankan managers. The owner of the classic factory is Indian, but there are managers from India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. But you raised a major point there. Walmart and Hanes and these other companies can say what they want, but they drive down the prices every single year. Mm-hmm. They slash and they slash and they slash. And the way that these corrupt factory owners then fight back is they just squeeze the workers harder. They cheat them. They make them work 15 hours a day. If they don't make their production goals, they're not paid. They have to keep working for free. They beat the workers. They actually grope the women in this factory to make them work faster. I mean,
this is so overwhelming. It's just
this is the biggest retailer in the world, Walmart, and they're doing these things. And by the way, the case they're talking about, the court case they're talking about, it's already over. It's a whitewash from beginning to end. They didn't do a single investigation. They didn't go to the factory in Classic. They didn't talk to the drivers, the company car drivers, who would take this man, Anil Santha, the rapist. He would take these women in his car. He'd go to a safe house that he had rented, and he'd rape them. Yep. They didn't do an investigation of finding the houses. They didn't try to talk to the drivers. They wouldn't let the women speak in a safe location, like Amanda said, to people of who they respect and trust as women's rights leaders. In other words, this is the shoddiest investigation I've ever seen. And even the National Center for Human Rights, which is supposed to be a human rights organization, of course it's a government human rights organization, it does what the government tells it to do. We beg this human rights organization, the National Center for Human Rights, which is a government entity, we beg them to let these women from Sri Lanka and Bangladesh come in to talk to these workers in a safe location, and they told us, no, we cannot do that. And now the whitewashers is already in the works, full steam ahead right now. I'm sure the case will be dropped momentarily unless people sign that petition, the Change.org petition, and we keep raising our voices. This is a case that could be heard around the world. This is no understatement. This is a big factory. It's the biggest factory in Jordan. Do you know this factory alone? The American people give back to this factory $21 million in tariff breaks.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
we're giving $21 million a year to this one factory out of our pockets because they have duty-free access to the United States, and meanwhile, the factories run like a prison.
And this is in the trade agreement, so that's where the language has to change. I mean, these trade agreements.
It has to be implemented. We have a trade agreement. The U.S. Jordan Free Trade Agreement was supposed to be the best free trade agreement ever negotiated because it actually had worker rights conditions at the core of the agreement, not sidebars like NAFTA.
Right.
So it was put out as the model.
I'll tell you what, though, Obama is trying to make a difference, and he's scaring the shit out of people because he doesn't. People don't want people. Yes. Yes. If you talk to the people at Solidarity Project or they are on it. He is starting to implement this stuff. That's why people are afraid of this kind of stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, to confirm that, now that you're mentioning it, because we were considering it, off the record, but the United Steelworkers Union, which is a very progressive union in the United States, has done a lot of work with the U.S. State Department on this case. And it's just, things are starting to move.
Good.
But only because, the pressure has been put on.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks, Charlie.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and I think that Charlie brings up an important point about this case that I think that it's very easy to feel like, well, I can't affect government corruption in Jordan, and I can't end sexual violence against women, and I can't fix the U.S. Jordan Free Trade Agreement. But you can do something for these women in this factory today, and that's lift up your voice and sign the petition and join the campaign and speak out against this injustice. And it's one small part of a much bigger pie, but it's a piece of the pie that individual people really can make a difference on.
So go to change.org and sign the petition now.
It's on our Facebook, right?
It's on our Facebook. It's going to be on our website. It's easy to do. They put it right on the homepage of change.org. So go and sign the petition. It's over 90,000 already. Charlie and Amanda, thank you guys so much for coming on the show today and talking about this. And will you please keep us posted on what's happening?
Absolutely, we will.
Okay.
Thank you very much for what you're doing.
We'll be
Charlie.
We'll be some watchdogs for you.
We'll do this.
Watchdogs and more watchdogs.
We're going to kick some serious ass. Sorry. All right. Thank you guys so much. We're going to be right back with a giveaway. We're the Broad Sirius XM Stars, Channel 107.